se'ns han menjat el temps abans. Nosaltres hem estat aquí apretats, una mica apretats. S'han quedat al tinter. Bueno, perquè és un procés molt ampli. Sí, és ampli, és molt ampli. Així hi ha moltes resistències també.
Hello, good afternoon. This is your interpreter. It seems that they're going to have only 5 minutes. Well, a Spanish 5-minute break. So hopefully, hopefully they will be back in 5 minutes and we will start.
No passa res. Sempre podem dir tot, ara dèiem que igualment és un fet que sempre queden coses en el tinter, perquè no s'acaba. No s'acaba. Tot plegat perquè hi ha massa genèrica. És que és molt transversal, com diu l'Alexi. Hi ha les empreses, hi ha algunes zones com aquesta noia. Clar, imagina. Com ve aquí, com ho ha fet, millor un dia de festa. És saber. És horrorós. Clar. I tot el tema de renfe que porten ja no sé quantes. Clar, és un exemple claríssim. Així que, bueno, que hem d'anar millorant, no? Però bueno, a veure, ja està el Fernando Fuster ja està. El que passa és que no... l'Estella. Bueno, no hace falta que las... Ponlas para atrás o a un lado.
No, ya. Ya. Bueno, vamos a empezar.
Okay, so we're going to start. Can I ask everyone to have a seat, please? It seems that we're going to start soon, hopefully. Everyone is taking a seat.
Vamos a empezar, por favor. Si os podéis sentar.
Can I ask everyone to have a seat, please? We're going to close the door so you can't run away. Brilliant. I believe that this roundtable justify us as international, as an international event. Without this, would not have been international. So we are so happy to have our Portuguese friends from the Timebanks, but I'm not going to take the floor from the moderator. Basically, I am just I'm the link between the different roundtables. So here you have Fernando. Fernando is a representative of the Sitges Timebank. For how long have you been there? For 11 years. He is a member of our so the Ibero-American Association and of our board of directors, basically, from the Ibero-American Timebank Association. So Fernando, anytime you can. Welcome from Sant Cugat, Catalonia. We welcome you to this roundtable with participants from different continents of the world. Today I have Eliana Madeira and Teresa Maria Branco, who are joining me today. Welcome to Catalonia. You are colleagues from Portugal. And virtually, we are so pleased to have Hyeran Wang from Korea, Wang Li from China, and John Bless from the United Kingdom. We greet you from the Sant Cugat House of Culture in the Valles Oriental region. Welcome. Furthermore, we appreciate the delayed participation of our esteemed colleague Yhali Lombera from Mexico and Dr. Kristen Gray, the widow of the creator of Timebanks in the United States of America and a fervent implementer of her late husband's ideal of people's well-being. Allow me to start the conversation with our colleagues from Portugal. I present them to you. Eliana Madeira has a degree in psychology, a postgraduate degree in collaborative project management, and a master's degree in activation of psychological development. In her professional career, she worked on a project to combat poverty. She was also a research fellow at the University of Aveiro, and she taught at the Higher School of Education Jean Piaget in Almada. Since 2002, she has been a part of the social intervention project team GRAL, which she has been coordinating for a decade. She is involved in national and international projects in various areas like gender equality, migration, human rights, education for global citizenship, other economies, and community intervention. She is coordinator of the national network of the Timebank in Portugal, and she's a member of the Lumiar Timebank. Teresa Maria Branco, she has a degree in history. She is a teacher. Well, actually, until the end of 1999, she was in Lisbon, in Angola, in the district of Aveiro, and in the past 20 years, she's been in the Algarve, where she chaired the founding commissions of the two basic schools in Quarteira. She worked for 3 years in the Portuguese teaching services abroad, in the Ministry of Education, in what was called FAOG, and she had the position of regional director in Faro. She retired at the end of 1999, and then she created the Quarteira Timebank branch in 2002. She returned to her homeland in Lisbon, and she began to collaborate with the GRAL and in the coordination of the national network of time banks. You have the floor.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Solamente en castellano, solamente para decir
I
que
will
no
speak
hablamos ni
only
portugués
Spanish to
ni
say that
castellano,
I
ni
don't speak well Spanish, neither Catalan, so I'm extremely sorry. I'll be speaking in Portuguese.
Antes de mais,
First and
gostaria de
foremost,
agradecer muito
we would like to
o convite
thank you
que nos fez vir
for your invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for your invitation, and thank you for allowing us to be here together and to be able to collaborate. It's a pleasure to be here with you today in these days from which we'll have new perspectives, new energy, and new motivation. These meeting spaces are absolutely paramount to revive our awareness of the value of this initiative that mobilizes us and to think of new ways to promote the full realization of its potential, of which we know there are many. Just a few words of introduction and presentation. As Fernando said, we are here as representatives of GRAL, which is an entity that in Portugal coordinates the national network of time banks. The time banks existed in Portugal since 2002. The idea originated actually right here in Barcelona, and since then, more than 6 dozen time bank branches have been created. So we have 23 now in operation in our country, and some are in the process of being set up. GRAL facilitates the initial training of the teams that make time banks dynamic. It organizes regular meetings between the members of time banks in Portugal. It accompanies the time banks in its operation, and it develops support materials, and it disseminates also this initiative. We would like to congratulate you for choosing the theme of emotional well-being, because it's a topic of huge relevance in our society and in this historical moment in which we live. So the Eurobarometer survey that was conducted in June 2023 revealed that 46% of the European Union population experienced emotional or psychosocial problems, such as manifestations of depression and anxiety in the previous 12 months only. The pandemic triggered problems of anxiety, of worry, of fear, and of distress. So to maintain emotional well-being in these times is absolutely a challenge. The feeling of security and reassurance are broken down in this scenario of continuous and systematic uncertainty. We're facing pandemics, wars, political, financial crises, climate crisis. The characteristics of the labor market are also adverse to help in the emotional well-being. So we have a lot of situations of insecurity and of job insecurity also, as well as abnormal and unnatural rhythms that lead people to burnout. The well-being of our societies is also threatened by haste, by this charge and dense present, as Elvira Mendes classified it at the international meeting of time banks in Portugal. In the last meeting of time banks in Portugal. So we live in fragmented societies where social support is clearly insufficient. We have individualistic societies where indifference and loneliness are on the increase. We live in a profoundly unequal world where many people live in a situation of poverty. The pressure for resilience and for people to never show themselves to be vulnerable remind us the words of the poet Fernando Pessoa. Oh, I am sick of semi-gods. Where are the people left in the world? And now I give the word to Eliana, who will be talking about the issue that interests us today.
Conseguem ouvir-me? Sim?
Okay, can you hear me? Brilliant. So despite the fact that we are aware of the potential of Timebank to contribute to the emotional well-being of the people who participate in it, it is also important to recognize also that there are limitations in the capacity of Timebanks to respond to all the human needs associated with well-being, because they depend on multiple factors, internal, external factors, including material conditions, health conditions, job satisfaction, political freedom, personal history. So basically, so many factors. So we have 5 dimensions that are associated to emotional well-being that we believe are related with the experiences and the opportunities that are generated in the context of Timebanks. These are the 5 fundamental dimensions of emotional well-being. The first one is to have positive and supportive interpersonal relationships, to feel supported and to feel that we are a part of a community. The second dimension is to have a self-esteem and a recognition of the personal worth. And also, we need to have a purpose in life, and this is absolutely fundamental for well-being. We also need to develop personally and to expand our human potential. And this is a very important dimension for emotional well-being. And finally, we need to live and to share rewarding moments that are associated with positive emotions. So we think that regarding this first dimension that has to do with the wealth generated by the Timebank, so we have to say that this initiative has contributed to the reinforcement of social support networks, to the reduction of loneliness, to build a proximity between the people, and to reinforce the sense of belonging of people. And exploratory study that we carried out last year. It was involving a sample of 55 people, mainly women, from 10 Portuguese time banks, provided us some evidence of this reality. The members of Timebanks who participated in the study were asked to rate from 1 to 5 the contribution of Timebanks in various areas. So 0 basically meant nothing, and 5 meant very much. So as you can see in this graph, the majority of responses were concentrated between 5 and 4 and 5, excuse me. So finally,
Quanto à segunda dimensão,
so as for the second dimension that is related to self-esteem, we highlight that the Timebank values all people. and their time, regardless of who they are, their age, their gender, their social origin, their geographical origin. People discover and are discovered and are valued for their individual skills, strength, knowledge, talents. So the results of this study that I was talking about, it points in this same direction, as you can see in the graph in front of you. In terms of having a purpose in life, the Time Bank has given a lot of meaning to the lives of many of its members. It reinforces the perception that people can improve other people's lives, that they can contribute to the common good, and that they can build a more humane, more fair, egalitarian, and alternative realities to the current models of life that we have in our societies. So I'll share the words of a member of the Time Bank of Santa Maria da Feira that reinforces what I said before. The Time Bank made me realize that I had not finished my mission. Basically, I was reborn the day I entered the Time Bank. It really filled my life with meaning. So in terms of the fourth dimension that relates to the development of individual potential, the Time Bank offered a space that is stimulating and generative for the development of the potential of all its users. So there is an extensive and diverse range of services learned related with learning, and that clearly demonstrates the potential of the Time Bank. So basically, you can learn everything, history, nutrition, literature, languages, cook, dance, sew by machine, plants. So the data from the study that I mentioned, they show explicitly that for many of the users of the Time Bank has been a learning space and a development space. And finally, regarding the last dimension, we can say that there are countless situations experienced in the Time Bank that have the potential to generate emotional well-being. So associated with positive emotions, for example, the meetings, the walks, the dances, the contact with nature, the manual activities that we share with other people, physical activities, etc. So we would also like to share maybe a less positive result of this study. So basically, this result shows that maybe the Time Bank is not reaching its full potential in areas of daily life, of managing a daily life. So this is important also to say here that emotional well-being is compromised when people experience difficulties in reconciling their professional life with their family life, when they're overburdened and they're unable to cope with the demands of everyday life. So although the majority of the responses in this study indicate that the Time Bank has a positive impact on the daily life of people, but when we compare the results of this dimension with the other dimensions, we see that we still have a lot to do and that we can go even further. So we would like to share with you some ideas for the future. So maybe some lights and some ideas about what we could do through time banks in order to make them a space to promote emotional well-being for people. So one of the ideas that we believe is important is to go deeper in the evaluation of the impact of the time bank on the well-being of its members. We need to be able to measure this impact, and also we need to reaffirm publicly this potential of the time bank in terms of a community resource to promote mental health and to prevent emotional distress. And also, we believe that it is important to structure opportunities and spaces for dialogue and to learn about mental health. So we need to combat stigma, and we need to be enabled to identify and address situations of distress that require specialized care. We also believe that it is important to create learning environments for the time bank members in areas like stress management, conflict resolution, social skills, etc. And for this, it is very important to continue to do really well what we have been doing until now. And we will end up with a testimony from a member of the Algarve Time Bank who says that the Time Bank gave me, above all, a lot of joy. And now we finish here hoping that all time banks always thrive more and more. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Due to time limitations, our Mexico partner could not able to connect live, but she has been kind enough to send us her recorded participation. Ms. Yhali Lombera is a member of the board of directors of the Ibero-American Association of Time Banks, and she's the activities coordinator of Kual Time Bank. She's a social activist. She's involved in supporting citizens and works interacting with other inclusion and support entities in her country. Currently, Ms. Lombera and myself are finalizing the details of the twinning between Kual Time Bank and the Sitges Time Bank, which is the second twinning of our Latin American network of time banks, because the first partnering was with Time Banks of Ecuador, managed by Esquel Foundation, with the Sitges Time Bank 8 months ago. Furthermore, with my colleague Yhali, we are creating a greater interaction on social issues between the two shores of our ocean. So let's listen to her message. Good morning. My name is Yhali Lombera. I'm a part of the Kual Time Bank. We are in city of Mexico, and we operate since March 2020. We have worked with the Ibero-American Association of Time Banks in different activities, fora, conferences, courses, radio programs, many types of events, etc. In this occasion, we would like to share with you the activity that we carry out on emotional well-being, because we have seen that all social associations, all the communities, we can have very good objectives. We can coincide in interests. We can have the best organizational tools, but we know also, and we have observed actually, that the success or failure of a collective project depends mainly on the way how we manage our conflicts. And these conflicts have to do with the emotional character of each one of the participants in these groups. So we will always have different points of view because we think and we feel differently. And sometimes we cannot resolve these differences. So the origins of our disputes, they can have different origins, internal traumas, life stories of each one of the members of the group that many times we cannot see, and that That's why we have different tools in order to face these conflicts. There is no personal recipe. Each one has a different personality, different characteristics. For example, there are people who are characterized for being very voluntary people who have an energetic determinations, and some others also. We really are moved by our feelings, and what moves us is emotion. And there are other people who are more rational and they need to understand things. So each personality is completely different. But what is important is to find the adequate tool in order to really understand each one of these personalities who have different tools, like, for example, the transgenerational psychology that studies the biological and cultural heritage. We have mindfulness also, psychomagic also that cures traumas based on symbolisms. We can also have neuroscience, neurolinguistics that are tools that analyze the behavior of the brain as responsible of different emotional states. There are other tools like, for example, the toroidal energy technology. And basically, we started studying on how to face conflicts, how to manage these conflicts based on looking for a solution of the different moments that led to difficult situations. And we know that in each one of these situations, what we have really deep inside is the emotional state. So we hope we will have more tools and that will be able to share with you these tools, this knowledge, in order to manage much better our emotions. So from here, from Mexico, we have worked locally with two groups mainly that really work specifically on these programs, like, for example, the group of Linaje del Sol. These are girls, and one of our colleagues, Cristina Mejia, will be participating in a roundtable, and she has many years of experience in emotional help and care. And we have worked with other groups and organizations like Seeds for the Future, Semillas del Futuro, who have developed the toroidal energy technology. So these are different toolboxes that allow us to go to really the origin and the root of the emotional problems that we can have in the steering committee and with the partners in order to develop our work in a much more professional way. So finally, I want to send a message to the colleagues in the Ibero-American Timebanks Association to continue exchanging this knowledge and to be able to share this knowledge with other people who are close to Timebanks, like the different cooperative societies and associations, etc. So thank you so much. We applaud this initiative and we send you a lot of love.
Nos trasladamos ahora a Asia para saludar a dos compañeras que hoy nos acompañan desde Corea
Are
y
going
China.
to Asia in order to connect with Korea and China.
Okay, can you hear
Let me
me?
introduce Dr. Hyeran Young,
Can you hear me?
Executive Director of Timebanks Korea. Good evening, Hyeran. Thank you for participating in our international roundtable. Dr.
Yes,
Young, with a PhD in English literature,
I see.
has stepped forward
I've seen my PowerPoint.
from lecturing to
Okay.
community activities.
Thanks for the organizers of this
as
conference
Director
for
of
offering this
Project
opportunity
Planning
to me,
Management at the
which
Kumi
allows me to share
Community
with you
Senior
here on the
Center.
topic Timebanks and
To then pass on to
emotional well-being.
international issues
Today, I will
as
introduce a
Director
typical
in
time bank in
Research and
China,
Development
and
of
my name
Asia
is Wang
Pacific
Li.
Center
I'm
of Education for International Understanding under the auspices of
not
UNESCO
me.
at Seoul. Está escuchando el. And presently heads the Korean
Can I-
time banking movement.
Yeah, can I talk now? Can you hear me? Do you hear me? Oh, do you hear me?
Good evening. Good evening. Hyeran. Hello.
Hello, do you hear me? Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, they can hear you.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, the organizer of the conference. I appreciate this opportunity to connect to time banking colleagues in Barcelona, Portugal, Mexico, and all across the world within the very meaningful theme that is time banks and emotional well-being. But my presentation will be looking at two cases of time banking projects undergoing in Korea and bring them to terms with raising citizens' emotional well-being. One is the Time Bank House project, which is run by my organization, our organization, Timebanks Korea, as a grassroots practice. The other is named Saishiot, which is part of a public welfare service agency in Seoul. Both are based in city Seoul. Let me share the screen. Okay. All right. Even though I'll be looking at two cases, I will be mentioning maybe three different time banks in Korea. But there are several more time banks going on in Korea. If you look at the stars, red stars, they are the red stars showing all the spots where time banking is going on in Korea, in South Korea. The time banking concept was first adopted to Korea through the time bank called the Love Chain in 2004. Before then, an Anglican church mission was providing volunteer service for the care of lonely patients, both in hospital and home, of a small city called Gumi. This city is about 3-hour distance from Seoul by train. What motivated them to introduce the time banking practice to their service was first, the volunteers' burnout and receivers' never-ending emotional dependence and unequal opportunities given to the old, the disabled, the poor, and other socially disadvantaged people. So the center looked for an alternative that would make volunteers' good feeling more sustainable and raise receivers' self-esteem and confidence about their capacity to control their life. And the center also wanted to raise people's awareness that everyone had something socially valuable for their communities once they belong to one. So this very movement named themselves as the Love Chain Timebank. And the logos of the Love Chain Timebank has been well practiced in the Timebank practice till now in Korea and inherited to the most of the following Timebanks in Korea. In spreading the concept and practice of time banking across the country, the organization, our organization, Timebanks Korea, played a crucial role, which was established in 2017 as a non-profit organization. And this is also based in Seoul. The organization, Timebanks Korea, has closely and hard worked with the Love Chain locally and Timebanks orgs and Timebanking UK globally. Its efforts targeted at spreading the practice to public welfare service, volunteer services, and grassroots movement across the country. Among many different projects run by the organization, one major project is named as Timebank House, which is also the name of the space set up for the project. And the Timebank House is located inside a marketplace of a district called Seodaemun, Seoul. And there are two neighborhoods close to the Timebank House, which are populated by 50,000 people approximately. And people over 65 years old in these neighborhoods go beyond 28%, almost 30%, which is indicated as a super aging society. Age includes various negative issues such as losing health, money, family, and friends. Looking at the high population of the elderly and the high rates of mid-low income family in the neighborhood, of which I am also a part, the organization decided to set up the Timebank House there in June 2021. And this place is open to any kind of people as long as they want to meet and spend time together with neighbors. And it's not only a venue of health exchanges, but also a venue of different programs that we or neighboring organizations organize, such as if you look at the photos, a lot of activities are going on, such as learning from each other, learning singing, harmonica, dancing, different things, and potluck dining with one-person household, and making and donating pet dog snacks, delivering side dishes to one-person household, learning arts, and etc. Majority of its users are the elderly or people with disability, and most of them live alone. And well, sense of community in villages and neighborhoods in Korea have long gone with the capitalistic market system developments and income earning labor demanded to family life. So even though some have lived in this neighborhood more than 50 years, they have no neighbors to turn to when they are in emergency. When it comes to one-person household, issues become more serious and complex. Meeting and playing ping pong together in the Timebank House, people in this neighborhood get to know neighbors newly and better, and build trust to give and receive help, restore the feeling of connection, and restore the confidence about their capacity to cope with everyday life, as well as the positive feeling about themselves and others. So over 1 year and 6 months since opening the Timebank House, About 200 neighbors have registered as members of this time bank. Not many of them come often though, but average 10 to 15 people come and go through the time bank, and average 1 hour a day they spend time together with their neighbors in time bank house. Among many stories, the first image, next. This image, well, is about two mid-aged male, one person, male single person people, two people. They were connected by helping each other. Well, the man at the bottom left, he has lived in this neighborhood 50 years, but he never talked to any neighbor in his life until he comes to Timebank house one day and said, he needs a person to come with him to the hospital because he needs like a sponsor, companion in order to get the sleep gastroscopy, because he had a stomach ache. He had to, had the examinations, medical examinations. So it was necessary to have someone to accompany him, but he had no one to come with him. So we found one for him, and the two became friends. Since then, this man can come to Timebank house every day and play ping pong, also volunteer to deliver side dishes to other one-person single household. And this is one story. And the other is, I wrote just an initial I, In Young. His name is In Young. He has Asperger's syndrome. He's fine, but he has problem with interacting with people and serious depressions he had. He's in his 20s. Well, he began to help a boy of 16 years old who had an epileptic, and they played together with Lego blocks. And well, in gratitude, the mother of the boy with epileptic, she began to help ladies in Timebank house, teaching them how to fold the papers and make flowers, paper flowers. And one of the ladies who learned from the mother, she taught singing to other ladies and gentlemen. One of the gentlemen who learned the singing, he teaches ping pong to another young boy with intellectual disability. And this boy joined the street cleaning young people. And that's how these two boys, one with Asperger syndrome, the other with intellectual disability, became friends through time banking. Yeah, this is another story. How about, how time banking helps people's emotional well-being. Okay. And well, as when we, not very often, very recently, we did a survey. We conducted a survey, very short survey on how our work in Timebank house benefited users, our members. And the questions we gave was like this. Most of them asking about, members' emotional well-being as well as physical well-being. but which are very closely related, inseparable. Yeah. So these kind of questions we use to assess our work. And another case, second case is related to public welfare service center program in Seoul. Well, this case, most of the ongoing time banks in Korea to try to embody the core values of time banking is particularly the asset perspective of time banking is the first to hit people. To the contrary, most of the public welfare services are focused on the recipient's problem and things they lack of. One such service called the Comprehensive Social Welfare Center is set up at 477 districts across the country in Korea. And within Seoul, there are 99 service centers like this. And one center is run by the City University of Seoul. And a few staff of the center spotted time banking concept while struggling to tackle the endless service gap filling conundrum by other means than public welfare service. So they wanted to make a true sustainable change in the daily life of their service receivers. And asset-based perspective of time banking empowered them to look at visitors differently, not as a passive receiver, but as an asset holder. So this welfare center opened a new space in a neighborhood that is outside the center building and separate from the mainstream service of the center. And the center used this space for a time banking practice experiment, especially for their asset hunting among citizens of all kinds, not necessarily among people in need, but also people with talents, willingness to help, loneliness, and time. They named the asset identifying process as treasure hunting. And the group of the staff, they also visited Time Bank House to learn more about time banking, and we shared a lot of ideas. And the staff concentrate on linking diverse needs with offers among people, first of all, which enables people to see differences made by and among them and feel the value of assets held in and among them. So exchange, made around, walking dogs and teaching, riding a bicycle and becoming chessmates and learning guitars, cooking for one-person household. These diverse activities, through these diverse activities, what they achieved over about 4 months is 71 members registered, and the hours exchanged activities, and they formed a steering committee for the space, and the committee members are all the Time Bank members. And 2 members' story is exciting. One member, she is a twin single mom. She had a very heavy depression. And after joining Time Bank experience helped her get out of the depression. And this old man who was living alone and feeling loneliness, after he became also the steering committee member, and his loneliness gone. The funder of the project, that is the district government, witnessed the differences that this project produced and recognized the experiment as something explorable for the future district policy planning. And neighboring centers are also beginning to turn their attention to time banking. We, as the organization in charge of spreading time banking practice in Korea, see this experiment very meaningful for the longer term strategy. We need to, we need to prepare pathways for people and agencies under public welfare service system to make a soft landing during the shift of economy from the high growth to low growth system and the unavoidable welfare budget cut. Being within the equal and reciprocal circle of time banking would nurture people's sense of safety and keep up the necessary level of social cohesion and solidarity among people. So we will keep on paying attention to this project very closely. So this is all about my presentation about what's going on about time banking and emotional well-being. Thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias, Hyeran, para...
Thank you very much, Hyeran, for this very interesting presentation. We take a very good note of it. And also from Asia, we're going to listen now to a researcher from China who is investigating how time banks are used as a tool for well-being. Dr. Wang Li is a lecturer at the School of Nursing at the University of Beijing, the medical school, and presently she is preparing her doctoral degree at the Institute of Population Research at the Beijing University. She had a master in geriatric nursing, and she mainly focuses on the correlation between the participation of adults in time banking and their quality of life. So please take the floor. We are listening. Wang Li, welcome and thank you.
Okay, thank you. And first of all, thanks for the organizers of this conference for offering this opportunity to me, which allows me to share with you on the topic time banks and emotional well-being. Today, I will introduce a typical time bank in China. This is a time bank in which only elderly care services are exchanged. And this is the reason why I choose this case to share. In China, elderly care is an important application of time banking, as there's a deep ideological foundation of mutual assistance and mutual benefits among citizens, and care needs arise with the aging population. In 1998, the first labor bank was established in Shanghai, which aims to provide services for the elderly. The time bank I would like to share is the one where I carried out my research. It's established in 2020 by Zhangjiagang municipal government, as most time banks were established by government. This city is famous for the culture of volunteering and its trends of population aging. Even though the government established this Timebank, is operated by a volunteer association, which is set up for this. There are 241 Timebank hubs in the whole city, and most of them are in rural areas. These Timebank hubs are embedded in communities and are managed by 26 social work organizations. By the end of June 2023, totally 4,107 citizens registered to be members of this Timebank. 1,485 of which are service providers and the others are service users. By the way, in almost all the Timebanks in China, members only provide or only use services. And the mutual assistance occurs in intergenerational people. Service providers are 50 years old and above, while service users are 60 years old. I may write wrong. While service users are 60 years old and above, namely younger elders help older ones. In this Timebank, only 19 elderly care services are exchanged, and I list them here. The data here are based on the transaction records in the Timebank. The red ones are regarded as services that can promote emotional well-being of members, namely chatting, reading books and magazines, hanging out, and psychological counseling. Chatting and reading books or magazines are top of the top three services used, which is a good evidence for emotional well-being. This Timebank intends to provide services for the disadvantaged older adults, including 5 guaranteed people, the empty nest elders, living alone elders, the disabled, and the elderly with dementia. However, for those empty nest elders whose children visit them more than twice a week, or those who refuse to communicate with strangers, and the elders who are using long-term care insurance services generally are not eligible for Timebank service users. We will find that these potential service users need emotional care, and these activities usually occur in service users' homes or in the activity center for the elderly in their community. Most service providers and service users live in the same community. They know each other well and are familiar with each other. However, service exchange not only benefits service users, but service providers. In July 2023, we interviewed 15 service users and 18 service providers to understand their perspectives on this Timebank. We interviewed those who are always active and those who are active but are not active anymore, as there may be different reasons to participate or quit. Those service users are satisfied with this Timebank, and they say that the volunteers help them so much, just as their relatives or their offspring. They are happy to chat with volunteers, especially for those who have to stay at home for most of the time. They would discuss on news in the community or in the city. If the volunteer doesn't visit them for a few days, they may miss them and contact with social workers or the volunteer to meet them. As most of these service users live alone, the company of volunteers would reduce their loneliness significantly and promote their social inclusion. By analyzing the transaction records, we found that there is usually a bonding relationship between service users and service providers. A service user usually contacts with 1 to 3 service providers, and even 1 in 10 service users would only contact with only 1 service provider. That is, they form a one-to-one relationship. This is why I conclude I conclude that participation in this time bank would promote emotional well-being. As for service providers, that is a totally different thing. They are healthy and don't need help. So their intention to participate in time banking is mostly altruism. In fact, only citizens who are 60 years old can register to be service providers, but for women, the age requirement is 50 years old. As in China, a lot of women retire at 50 years old. These women no longer work and there's usually no baby to care. So they want to participate in social affairs and even participate as volunteers before they participate in time banking. That means time banking is just a way for them to engage in society. Almost all service providers say they feel very happy with helping others, which is a reflection of self-value. When they help others, their emotional well-being is promoted as well. Time banking provides them with an opportunity to live an enriched life. That is, they have something to do every day, and this is meaningful. In contrast, retired men, after choosing to stay at home to watch TV or to chat with other men in the community. By the way, in this time bank, we found that only 5% of men provide services, but more than 35% use services, which means men participate less but need more. Besides, one of those interviewed service providers said that she didn't want to participate anymore because 4 of 8 elders she contacts with have passed away during the COVID-19 pandemic. She is so sad about this, as they are close friends and neighbors. To conclude, in this time bank, it is not only a variety of activities that promote emotional well-being, but also the bonding relationships between service users and service providers. This may result from the characteristic of elderly care. The elders want to be immersed in a secure and a familiar relationship. And that's what I want to share with you here. Thank you.
Gracias, Wang Li. Regresamos a Europa.
Thank you very much. We are back in Europe and we are going to give the floor to John Bless from Timebanking UK. He is the head of programs of the Timebanking unit in UK. Before that, he worked for the national UK service as one of the operations managers and commissioner of services. He has managed a health and well-being center in London where they run a program called Healthy Living, and alongside medical services that improved patients' physical and mental health through the participation in community activities. Timebanking UK is celebrating actually its 21st anniversary in August 2023. So nowadays they have had over 6.5 million time banking hours exchanged, and also Timebanking UK is an organization that supports the establishment and the development of time banks across the United Kingdom, where we have now 120 time banks at a national level. And currently, they nearly have 25,000 active members, and they have more than 2,500 affiliated organizations that are members of local time banks. And John is going to offer us his presentation now. So welcome, John. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much to the organisers and the audience for giving me a chance to speak to you today. I'm afraid that my Spanish is very poor, so please, you'll have to bear with me as I speak to you in English. I'm really going to talk about how well-being has benefited through time banking within the UK and give you some examples of that and how we use time banking in different ways. So I'm sure that a lot of what is on this slide will be very consistent, and in fact I am amazed at how much, regardless of our different countries, our different cultures, how much is very much the same in essence in time banking between us. And so I'm sure you all know that time banking is an asset-based philosophy. Everyone has a value regardless of their education, their ethnicity, their class in society. And it's a patient-centered approach where time is the currency and everybody's time is equal. In the UK, as in other countries, as we've heard this morning, time banks create social and practical support networks, and they help to tackle loneliness and social isolation in communities and neighbourhoods. But what they also do is they improve the health and well-being of people who participate. We often focus on the people who need support, but actually there is increased self-esteem for people who offer the support as they realise they do have something to contribute to their society. And we do have evidence in the UK that time banking does reduce the strain on public services and on the health professionals. So I used to work for 25 years in the UK's National Health Service, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in its relations with time banking in the UK. This slide is just really to show you that on the left-hand side is the cycle of interaction that time banking offers, which is very much like Hyeran showed you earlier in Korea. On the right-hand side, we have a time banking software platform, and when people join our time banks, we ask them these questions. So what is the reason for you joining a time bank? And these are the percentages that we received from a survey of just under 2,000 participants. And so you can see that most people just want to help out people in their local community. Others want to help another person at 61%. Others, nearly 55%, wanting to meet new people. And although it's a smaller number of 8%, some people see the building of their confidence and increased well-being is enabling them to gain employment, which for some people, time banking involvement is the first step for them in approaching work again. So time banking networks in the UK support statutory services, but we do not replace them. So we often fill the gaps that we find that statutory services, particularly like the health services, offer. But we do have a close working relationship in the UK with our National Health Service and our Department of Work and Pensions. So with the National Health Service, since around 2019, each doctor's centre has had a social prescriber, a person who is able to prescribe health and well-being activities instead of medicines where that is appropriate, because it's not always the case that people who come to a practice or a surgery, a doctor's centre, don't always need medication. Sometimes it's around the lifting of mood and improving their mental health. With the Department of Work and Pensions, that's really around our social security system. And what you are able to do in the UK is exchange time banking hours while you are looking for work. And so this enables people to gain new skills, to become more confident, increase their own self-esteem, and make them able to go for job applications and for job interviews. So it doesn't stop people from participating in time banking if they are currently unemployed. In Southeast London, we have two very successful and sustainable time banks that have been running since 1998, and they're still running today at Paxton Green and Rushy Green. And both of these time banks were created by local doctors who identified that people were continuously seeking appointments for purportedly for what they thought were medical reasons, when actually what they needed was to be more connected with their local community, less socially isolated, and by participation improving their mental health. In 2011, I ran at Earl's Court in London a health and wellbeing centre, and we ran a programme of healthy living activities. Now this was included yoga, Pilates, and other physical activities, but it also included a creative writing program, photography program, art, music, and anything where people wanted to come together to be involved around improving their skills, but also improving their well-being by interrelating with other people within their local community. And I think well-being even more so now, post-pandemic and during the cost of living crisis, is that our time banks in the UK, as I'm sure in other parts of the world, are also involved with food banks, baby banks, and warm banks. And warm banks in the UK are really communal places where people can go where they might not have enough money to heat their homes because of the cost of fuel at the present time. So you can see that time banks are interwoven within health and well-being across the UK. So I was talking about Paxton Green Time Bank. This has 940 members individually and has over 150 organisational members. And it was started by a local doctor 15 years ago. And the people on the right-hand side in the photographs were elderly people living with depression who would come to see him regularly. And after sorting out their medical needs and their medicine needs, their prescribing needs, he decided to start a time bank. And the percentages that you see there are what these people reported in terms of their improved mood, their reduced loneliness, their better release from depression, and that 83% felt that they made new friends. And so through this kind of social interaction, we can see that people's well-being is lifted through time banking activities. If you want something that is more scientific, perhaps, and less self-reported, then we have a number of social return on investment evaluations that have not been done by time banks, but have been done by independent organizations. And on the left on this slide is an evaluation done by a local government area in Derbyshire, and Derbyshire is in the Midlands in the UK, where there is a network of time banks across one area. And the council had commissioned the network of time banks and wanted to know what the value was for the money that they had invested within the time banking network. And at the top there you see the self-reported elements of the evaluation, where people who are Timebank members in Derbyshire had increased self-esteem and confidence, that they had felt an increased feeling of usefulness within their own local neighbourhoods and communities, and felt that they'd formed deeper relationships. But I guess if you are a commissioner of services, like I was within our National Health Service, you want to know what value for money you are receiving. And so this evaluation showed that for every pound that was invested in time banking, there was £6.40, £16.5 roughly, that meant that there was less of a strain on public services during that time. On the right-hand side is something that we've developed, which is a social return on investment calculator, which was developed by an accountancy firm. And what this enables us to do is to input certain factors as to how a local time bank is developing and the impact that it has on its local community, so we can actually calculate how much there is in terms of a social return by people participating in time banking. And this is important because for commissioners, these would be decisions that they would need to make as to whether they want to fund formal government services, statutory services, or whether they want to fund those services in the community which are run by the community for the community. I mentioned social prescribing earlier, and in the UK we have what's called the Universal Personalised Care Agenda, which essentially means people as patients taking more control over their care. And so if people are in this position, they are given in part their own budget, and they can decide what to do with their money to improve their health and well-being. So this may be around trying to work with the formal health system in the UK, but equally it can mean that they can utilise their money to participate in time banking activities, or they can participate by membership in their local gym, and that may actually give them more health and well-being than being involved with the formalised healthcare setting. So social prescribing link workers and care navigators are people who work in doctors' health centres who are able to support people who might say, I want to be connected with more people around photography or music or art or looking after cats and dogs. How can you help me to identify a local organisation that can help me with that? And there are plenty of research programmes that have been undertaken in the UK which give you the formula at the bottom, which is that happier people who are more connected with their local community and enjoying what they're doing really means there's fewer appointments that are made with their local doctors. So it's not to say that medicine and doctors do not have a role, but it's not the totality of the health and well-being of individuals. Just wanted to give you a quick survey of a case study, really, which is that Paul was somebody who used to run his own business and unfortunately had a marriage breakdown that ended in divorce, which caused him to descend into homelessness and alcoholism. But through involvement in a time bank, Paul became a trustee of an organisation called Broadway in London, which is a homelessness charity that helped him turn his life around, and that was through time banking participation. And Paul says there that all our clients at the Broadway charity have mental health problems, addiction problems, or are homeless. time banking helps them reconnect with their community. With time banking, it is so casual and informal, it eases people back into their local society and is a great stepping stone, a bridge, if you like, to build confidence, to progress into formal voluntary work, and then go back into employment and work. And through all of this, Paul won a national award for being an inspirational board member. So from somebody who had been homeless and experienced alcoholism, he then became a board member and won this award. And it was the first time that a homeless person had won this award in the UK. I just wanted to share with you how we work with time banking in different contexts very quickly. So I've talked about social prescribing, but we also run a time bank in the UK for people who are blind or have visual impairment or sight loss. And we work with England and Wales Blind Golf in the UK, not only to support people to play the sport they love, but also to deal with their poor mental health during the winter months when golf is not played in the UK. And so this is around supporting people who are isolated, who have no sight, to enable them to go to the shops to do shopping, to pick up their medication, to look after their animals, to look after themselves, because many of the members of England and Wales Blind Golf have poor mental health and potentially suicidal thoughts. We also have time banking with a charity called Bet No More, which is a charity that supports people to get over gambling addiction, and time banking is being used to improve their health and well-being and to draw them away from gambling, which not only supports them but supports their family as well. We also have time banks in prisons and in young offenders places where we connect a local community time bank with prisons, and so where time banking hours are generated in the prison, those are exchanged with the community time bank outside. And we also work with probation services, so once prisoners are released, then time banks can help to bring them back into society after they've been in prison. We also have time banks with refugees and asylum seekers. So you are able in the UK to undertake time banking activity whilst you await the outcome of your visa application to remain in the UK. And that helps with refugees and asylum seekers sharing their skills, their knowledge, their culture with local communities, reduces that social isolation and also reduces any kind of stigma that there might be. And the final thing I'll say on this slide is around social housing. So we have a lot of time banks which are set up where people might live in a certain neighborhood or a block of flats, an apartment building, whereby they will exchange skills and time banking, making the community come together to improve health and well-being. So as you can see, time banking has a lot of different contexts in which it can improve well-being, as well as in the kind of mainstream communities within the UK. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Gracias, John.
Thank you, John. And finally, last but not least, the contrary, actually, we have the most awaited message of the ex-wife of Edgar S. Khan, Dr. Christine Gray, and we had exchanges lately and it was absolutely fantastic. So due to time differences, so she sent us a video message. It's a very special message. It's a homage to Edgar Khan, her late husband, and also colleague, because Christine Gray worked in time banking, social actions. She works towards equal rights, citizens, well-being, etc. Dr. Christine Gray is a professor at the University of the District of Columbia at the David A. Clark School of Law. And this School of Law that I personally know was founded by Edgar Khan and his first wife, Jean Camper. She was a Black activist that I met in the 60s. So Dr. Gray exercised as a consultant, and also she gave conferences. And Christine's work was focused on the systemic changes, and she applied the co-creation in the time banks and the holistic thinking system. As a former CEO of Timebanks USA, and in other positions that she had, Christine helped in shaping numerous aspects of what today is Timebanks USA. And moreover, she was an incubator of new ideas and, of course, of innovation. And she created a hub for the national expansion and international expansion of the Timebanks networks. So we talked with her lately about the hub that we have proposed in the past February, about quality of time that the Sitges Time Bank proposed, and on which we are working with colleagues in Latin America. We are going to start working now with Africa and Europe. So she played an important role because she was the one who initiated the National US Academy of welcoming to people. So welcoming of whom? Of prisoners who re-entered the community. It was a work that started in the 60s with Jane Camper in the States. I mean, it's a very long story. I could spend the whole morning talking about it. It's very interesting because our colleague from Korea was inspired by the book of Edgar Khan that was translated in Korea, No More Throwaway People. So you see the relationship between our speakers today. She has written also a lot of proposals, many very interesting. We have very little time left, but anyway, we are going to put on the Ibero-American Association website a lot of information about this. Just, I think that the very last thing that is very interesting to say is that Christine met Edgar Khan when she started writing her doctoral thesis. And one day when she was working with him, Edgar Khan asked her, "Do you want to marry me?" And they spent years living together. So you see that it's not only the links, as the colleague said, but it's the love chain, as our beloved Korean colleague said. So not only we're talking about selfishness, and we're talking about links, we're talking about love in the Timebanks. Can you please show us the video?
Good morning. It is my honor and my
Bueno,
pleasure to be able to talk this morning about Edgar Khan. Edgar Khan was my husband, my love, my teammate, my inspiration for 23 years. I joined him in 1999 and we got married in 2000 and we were together until January of 2022 when sadly he passed away. In those years together, working with Edgar so closely, I learned so much. Edgar was an institution builder, an amazing institution builder from an early age. He and his first wife, Jean Khan, created the Legal Services Program and developed the National Legal Services Program, which in the years since has served literally millions of people. It changed the nature of law in this country. A second thing that Edgar did was to work with tribal leaders across the United States to press for tribal self-government, which at that time was denied to them. And they were successful in achieving the Native American the American Indian Self-Determination Act of 1975, which in the years since has opened up so many possibilities for tribal self-government and has allowed the tribes to thrive in a very different way than before. He and Jean co-created a law school which was at the time revolutionary for its diversity and for its modes of teaching, because they applied clinical legal education, which at that time was virtually unknown and is now required by the American Bar Association of all law schools. But the thing that Edgar was most proud of, right to the end of his days, was the spread of time banking around the world. So why? Why was that one accomplishment so important to Edgar? Well, institutions are designed with goals and outcomes in mind. And very often the reasons for those goals and outcomes are not explicit, but Edgar was very explicit in all of his institution building. The goal was to make a world that is more just, more fair, more equal for all. But there's whys that lie behind that why. And there are three that I want to share with you this morning. The first is that every person, every human being is a miracle in Edgar's view. The second, that we need each other. And the third, that our institutions should serve us and not we them. So I'm going to go into each of those in a little bit more detail. The first, we are all miracles. Edgar would say, Edgar had his sayings, and one of his sayings was, Chris, you know, there are more synapses in our heads than there are stars in the universe. He would say that over and over again to me, to others, and it was such an important truth to him that we are all miracles. Therefore, we all deserve respect. We all deserve to be nurtured, cared for, and to be honored and rewarded and recognized for the things that we contribute to the world. The second, that we need each other. Another saying of Edgar's was, we come into the world 9 months in debt. It is natural human instinct to want to give back, to want to contribute, to be seen for our contributions, to be honored for our contributions, because there lies the root of our resilience, our security, our well-being, our ability to grow in ourselves and be the best that we can be. We need each other. And so he would always say, pay it forward, pay it forward. When you receive, give. But that in turn means that our giving must be accepted. We need the opportunities to give. And so many people are not given those opportunities. So this is another reason why we must create institutions that deal with us fairly, equally, give us equal opportunities to be contributors as well as receivers. And then there is the third, that we must design our institutions to make us all that we can be. So many of our institutions and our economy at large are not designed that way. They are designed to make money or to be efficient or all sorts of ends that barely hold human well-being in mind. And to that end, Edgar looked at what he called the core economy of home, family, neighborhood, community, the places where we are nurtured and grow into being human beings. Those are the most significant institutions that we have, and yet so often they're overlooked, discounted, not valued enough. And for him, time banking as a complementary currency was the tool, the approach, the thinking that would allow us to truly focus on the core economy of home, family, neighborhood, and community, where human beings are taught to be decent, caring, contributing, passionate for justice, human beings who care for one another and are the best of themselves. So that is Edgar, at least as much as I could share. I could go on and on and on, because he had ways of building institutions as well as principles that underlie it. But these are three critical principles that he had. Human beings are miracles. We need one another. And we must build institutions that nurture our capacities and recognize, honor, and reward them. Thank you so much for this opportunity, for sharing this with you.
There's no microphone. I lost the microphone. Microphone. There's no sound. I'm sorry, I cannot translate. Okay, so we don't have time for questions and answers. Could we put the slide of our webpage? We are going to, with Giulio, we are going to create a chat with questions to our colleagues from China, from Korea, from Portugal, from Timebanking UK also, John, and also maybe Ms. Gray could answer some questions through this chat. So here you have all the information. So I invite you, please, to participate. And in 2024, I throw a challenge. Let's look for a quality of life. And I go back to a writer that I love, Fernando Pessoa, Eliana Pessoa. Eliana talked about him here, and it really touched my heart because I love Pessoa. He is a man that was not well understood. Why? Because the rest of Europe, for example, in the United States, and the rest of Europe does not understand that he was a just person and he was angry because he was just. Where are the people in this world? And I give him the response. People are in the time banks. Thank you. Thank you so much, Fernando. Okay, so we're going to have some time for lunch, and then we'll be coming back at 4 p.m. There will be a round table about national experiences, and you're all invited, and thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you to all of you. And the interpreters thanks all the speakers from Korea, China, the UK. Thank you very much. I hope that the translation went well and that you could follow me. Thank you.
Oh, merci. Eso te iba a decir porque miraremos hacer cápsulas y pasamos las cápsulas que tenemos presupuesto para el año que viene. Hacer el montaje. Sí, está grabado. Sí, eso estará en YouTube. Sí. Ya subiremos cuando esté dado donde lo podéis encontrar. Vale. Porque sí, porque de otros lados, cambio, participo y veo. No, pero